I found her on a Tuesday, which is to say I found her where Tuesdays tend to find people, stranded at an inconvenient intersection between the life you know and the life you might, if you were reckless, step into. The alley behind the laundromat smelled like wet lint and lemon detergent. Streetlights made the puddles look like oil paintings. She sat on the curb with a bundle of clothes soiled with nothing anyone human would want to touch, and a face that was, until you noticed everything else, achingly human. Not human like my neighbor or my sister. Human like the old family photos in the attic, that ghosty kind of human whose laugh you can almost hear, but can't quite place. Her skin had a shimmer, the color of rainwater over river stone, and when she tilted her head the light ran in slow ripples across her cheekbones. She wore a threadbare coat that might once have been white. In the lamplight her hair looked like driftwood braided with silver wire. "Please," she said when I stopped, and her voice was like someone speaking through a coral cave, warm, slightly hollow, with salt at the edges. "Please let me shower at your home, human. I only have $3. I laughed because that felt like the correct thing to do. My first laugh, reflexive and mean, was the one that forms when you think a stranger is delusional. Then I looked at her properly. There were dark bruises like old storms under her eyes, and the way her shoulders hunched told stories my mouth didn't want to translate into words. Her hands were tipped with blue, like she had been digging in cold soil. "Why $3? I asked. It was the practical question, because there always has to be a practical question when mercy is about to become inconvenient. She blinked slowly. Her pupils were slitted for just a breath, then rounded like they had decided they could be trusted. "Because $3 is what I have," she said. "And because it is the currency for water in some places, yes? On my planet the washers require coin. Here, Earth's coins are adaptable. I traded a story for them at the market." Her smile, if it was a smile, was quick, a moth of light. "Or I could strip and show you what I am, but you might not like that." There it was, the bargain. Vulnerability wrapped in humor is the most dangerous currency of all. I live alone in the top floor walk-up above my repair shop. It's the kind of place that has seen better owners and worse plumbing. The bathtub is small, stained from decades of others' impatience, and the water heater has a temper. It suited me fine. I had not intended to invite anyone into that space, but I'm the kind of person who keeps scarves in coat pockets and soup in the freezer. It turned out I keep a clean towel on the radiator, too, the kind of thing the universe likes to reward people for on Tuesdays. $3 buys you a shower, I told her. But no stripping on my stairs. She laughed, a sound like shells knocked together. Agreed. She stood, and when she moved up the alley the city seemed to widen around her, as though she made room wherever she went. When she reached my building I let her in because my feet had already chosen, and because the alternative, letting a shivering stranger sleep on a damp stoop, would have hung my conscience like wet laundry for the rest of the week. Her name, she told me in the kitchen over my chipped mugs, was Mirren. The vowels rolled foreign and comfortable around my tongue. She ate my soup like a gospel, and then told me about markets in places where the air tasted like oranges and iron, and about coin-operated baths that sang while they filled. She spoke in images more than sentences, maps of memory stitched with metaphors. She would pause, look at the radiator, and say, "On my world we keep heat in stones," and I would nod because nodding is a language I know how to use. When I showed her to the bathroom, she looked at the tub like it was an altar. She ran her fingers along the porcelain edge, as if giving thanks.
"Blue water," she said.
"It will sing." She dropped her 3 crumpled bills on the sink like an offering. The shower is a democracy in my apartment. Sometimes the water is a warm tyrant, sometimes a thrifty monarch. This day it agreed to be generous. Mirren stepped under the stream as if it were the first rain she'd been allowed to feel in a lifetime. She closed her eyes and let the water map the bruises into pale moons. Steam gathered around her like a curtain. There is a small treachery that comes with watching someone else unburden. Flesh softens in the steam, and stories leak out in involuntary ways. She hummed under her breath, and then she began to speak. It was not a coherent tale at first. It was a spool of impressions that nodded and unraveled in the same sentence. My ship,
she started.
It is like a house made of glass and apology. It broke. We broke. I walked until the sky remembered that it had other colors. I sold linens. I sold a watch that used to tell time properly. I learned the coin names. I learned to say sorry in 4 dialects. I kept a little for stairs. Her words trailed into a wash of laughter and sob. I sat on the closed toilet seat because people in stories sit on toilet seats when they are suddenly told truths that smell like iron. I listened to the way the water rearranged her words into something I could hold. Every so often she would say, "On my world," and the phrase would expand into an entire little universe. I began to suspect that everything she called a market, a bath, a coin, was as alien to me as a constellation. "When you are alone and cold," she said, voice muffled by the curtain of water, "you trade small pieces of yourself. A smile, a name, a night. The market always takes more than you think." "Is that why you asked to shower for $3? I asked. The question was quieter than I intended. It didn't demand an answer. It invited one. She stopped scrubbing for a second, and the water formed a halo on her shoulder.
"Yes," she said.
"And because when a human's home smells like bread and tools, it means there is someone inside who will not throw you away." That last thing, "not throw you away," pressed against my ribs like a hand. I thought of all the things I'd thrown away. Ex-girlfriends' letters, bad tools, names of boys from grade school. The list was long and sometimes tidy. She bathed until the tub ran cool, and the steam was just another ghost. When she came out, wrapped in my ratty towel, the bruises had paled but not vanished. She dressed in the old coat, which now hung from her shoulders like an honored cloak, and she tucked the $3 back into her pocket as if she had never spent them. "You could stay," I told her, before I could decide whether I had the right. My voice surprised me, hoarse and earnest. "There's a bench in the shop. It's not much, but it's dry." Mirren looked at me as if I'd offered her a map to a secret harbor. "For how long?" she asked, and the careful economy of her question showed she had practiced patience like a craft. "Until you don't want to," I said. "Until you find the next market, the next shower. Until you can sing to your ship again." She slept on the bench between my broken radios with the steadiness of someone who has been traveling on borrowed nights for too long. In the morning she made coffee, like a liturgy. She oil-painted one of my old radios because she said radios on her world were like birds. She patched a speaker with a strip of her coat and then taught me a word that meant home, in 3 different cadences.